honored today Sandia National Laboratories and their webinar. The Kat will be presenting on 10,000 feet view of encryption, but before we get started, I want to give you a quick overview of the WiCyS organization. We are a 501c3 nonprofit with over 9,800 members worldwide. They make up the academia, research, and industry. And we are known by our acronym WiCyS because we are a cybersecurity sisterhood. WiCyS has numerous programs and options available. Currently, our most recent program is going to be the Mentor-Mentee program that is open right now, and applications will close on August 25th. We're very excited about this. And we have over 70 professional affiliates located worldwide, as well as over 260 student chapters. We want to take a special thanks as the WiCyS organization to our strategic partners, specifically our tier ones, who today is Sandia National Laboratories, but also Akamai, Amazon, Bloomberg, Carnegie Mellon University's Software Engineering Institute, Cisco, Ford, Google, Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, Optum, Sandia National Laboratories, and SentinelOne. As we have with all of our webinars, we're very excited. Please feel free to ask questions. You'll see that in the bottom part of your tool. We will be saving questions for the end, but please feel free to submit them as they come up, and we will get to them after Kat is finished with her presentation and her slides. And then lastly, just want to draw your attention to the WiCyS newsletter. This is a free newsletter that keeps you up to date on our different programs happening year round and when they're launching, as well as any news that our strategic partners are sharing with the industry. We are very, and with that, I'm going to take a minute and turn it over to Kat for her webinar. And Kat, go with all you.
Well, me. Okay, so welcome to the 10,000 foot view of encryption. I'm not the only person who's ever used this reference, 10,000 foot view. We're going to talk a little bit about how and where and how all this kind of stuff started. So this is going to be what you're going to consider to be a very informal talk on how we provide confidentiality through encryption. I hope that you enjoy the next 45 minutes. I am going to fire hose you with a barrage of information, some of which is pertinent to your life and some of which isn't. I also want to bring attention to the fact that you can earn CPEs for taking our webinar. The appropriate CPE information, depending on what certificate you would like to apply them to, are available in the webinar information. If you have additional questions or concerns, please reach out to WiCyS and they will address some of those concerns. So I'm going to show you, there it is. I think I've got the big scary picture of, I have worked in the industry for over 23 years. Currently, I'm a principal information systems security manager with Sandia National Laboratories. I began at the lab as a cloud security engineer. I also am affiliated. I'm a freelance instructor for EC Council, ISACA occasionally, Center for Infrastructure and Security at UTSA in San Antonio, and yes, I own my own cyber business. But I am here today to talk to you about the 10,000 foot of encryption and how we can improve our confidentiality. So what is crypto? Why are we here? Well, the real reason we're here to find out about this magical thing that is crypto. And we're going to talk a lot about different pieces and parts of how crypto works, where it came from, but what's the real purpose? The real purpose of the next hour is to basically keep secret things secret and only allow those users who should have access, the correct access to that information. And we were talking a little bit earlier and we were discussing how cyber has this big label that covers so many things. Thank you, Department of Defense in the United States, for providing this magic word cyber. Well, this magic word cyber covers a lot of things, from information assurance to identity and access management to, yes, the science of cryptography. So let's talk a little bit about why we do this. We want to encrypt things in data. We want to encrypt data in rest. We want to encrypt data in motion. And we want to encrypt data in use. All of those things require us to use a series of events that will allow us to be successful. Okay, so here we go. And again, I warned you this was a fire hose. We're going to do this. I'm going to get a little deep. I'm going to make a lot of jokes, but it's going to stick. And it's a lot of fun. This is this course was designed, or this webinar was designed to give people CPEs for the CISSP, for the CISM, for the CEH, all three. But at the same time, it gives you this wide swath of information about what crypto systems do and how they work. So here goes. In one of the instructors that I had while studying for some of my cyber certifications, his name was Joe Barnes. And he told me, he said, I am going to put your brain through pain. So for the next hour of your life, I am going to put your brain through pain. Now, whenever we talked about cryptography, we have 4 objectives. The first objective is privacy or confidentiality, keeping secret things secret, not allowing unauthorized users access. So some of the ways we do that is using block ciphers and stream ciphers. And yes, I will explain all these things. We avoid misuse of stream ciphers. We don't want to use, sometimes we don't want to use a stream cipher. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And we talk different kinds of blocks. So ultimately, what is privacy? It's the beginning of one of the private things, but it is confidentiality. Authentication. That's the second objective of cryptography. Some encryption we were going to talk about doesn't authenticate. Some encryption does authenticate. Every kind of encryption we're going to talk about today, or every kind of ciphers we're going to be talking about today, do different parts of the pain mechanism. Some uphold all the elements of pain, and some of them uphold one, just confidentiality, right? The third objective of cryptography is integrity. Don't mess with it. Prove nobody messed with it. Ensure and have evidence that what was sent was what was received. Okay? Integrity means we have proof that nobody's messed with it. Now, there's a couple ways we prove integrity, but it's not cryptography. Now, there is cryptography that upholds integrity. But when I talk about things like hashes or message authentication codes, I'm talking about crypto methods which prove integrity checks. I like to call them the mix, message integrity check. These are things we do to ensure that the messages are crossing and the data at rest is being validated and the data in motion is being validated. And we talk about things like homomorphic encryption, that it's being validated in use. Now, the last one is one of the real reasons why we added this on the tail end. This is why we have things like digital signatures, non-repudiation. And that non-repudiation means that I can't say I didn't send it. I can't say I didn't receive it. Can't say it didn't come from me. Can't say it's unrevocable truth that there is a series of evidence that says, I'm sorry, but it came from your address. It came from your IP address. You signed in, and we have proof that you had to put in an MFA. Unrefutable truth that helps us validate integrity, authentication, and privacy. So what is the next 4 things we're going to talk about? You're going to see these 4 things come back over and over again, but we're going to put your brain through some pain. So let's do it. There's 2 kinds of crypto. We're on the basic scale. Again, this is a 10,000 foot view. You're going to see me go way down to the basement, and then you're going to see me come all the way back up. Okay, so symmetric encryption. Here we go. Single key. 1 key. I only have 1 key to my car. Only have 1. Yes, I probably should have a second key. But I only have 1 key. It's the key that starts the car. It can encrypt it. It can decrypt it, right? I only have 1 key. There's a lot of names used for symmetric encryption. Depends on which exam you take, which book you read, and which author wrote it, right? So we have session key, single key, shared key, private key. All of them are the same name as symmetric encryption. And symmetric means same, right? So they're the same, single key. So when I refer to any one of those things, secret key, shared key, private key, just 1 key. So you can see symmetric encryption, I use 1 key to open it and to close it. Asymmetric encryption, on the other hand, has two keys. It takes key number one to start the encryption, and key number two to end the encryption or unencrypted, right? Again, very, very high level view. Now, it has to have two different encryption keys. We refer to this as public key encryption. We have a public key that we share with everyone, and then we have a private key we share with no one at all, just us. We keep that private. At no point do we ever share our private key. Well, what the heck? You got one key that's public, one key that's private. Well, why does that work? It works because it's a mathematical pair. Just like when you have a great example of it might even just be siblings. They share very much of the same genetic material, but they're still their own person. Well, asymmetric encryption is a mathematical algorithm that allows those two key pairs to figure out how they're made of the same material, but different in different ways. Okay, we share all those public keys with everybody. Every time you climb on the World Wide Web, you're sharing keys, but you're going to keep that private key private. We'll talk a little bit more about this. Symmetric encryption, wicked fast. It goes really, really quick. Asymmetric encryption, slower than dirt. So we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages, but there it is. One is fast and one is slow. And we'll talk about how we have to pair them together to make it a functional capability. All right, so where did it all start from? There's all these words that I'm throwing out all over the place. And, I know what those words mean. But sometimes we tend to mix up some of the words we use because even the word blockchain, everybody's like, that's crypto. It's a form of crypto. It's not really crypto. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the words that I want you to walk away with as someone so you can talk about these things with other people. Cryptography is the actual science of making messages secret. We've been doing this since Sanskrit. We did it, Julius Caesar did it. We're hiding things in messages, or we're hiding whole messages in symbolism. Whatever it is, it's hiding or concealing messages or data within code. And a code means that you can figure it out. It means you can turn it on and turn it off. So that's the difference between cryptography and encryption. Now, here comes encryption. This is it. Encryption means I have to have a formula that allows me to do something. But I also have to have a key coupled with that formula to get an end result. I'm not sure everybody knows how a lock works and how a lock works. A lock has tumblers. A lock has very, very established structure. So if I have a door lock and I open up a door lock, most of them are very similar. But the key is different for each door lock. The encryption, the requirement for us to do this really truly means that I have to have plain text. I add in an algorithm, a mathematical algorithm. I have to have a key. That key can encrypt and decrypt. And now I've got gobbledygook. So we're going to go deeper, but encryption requires a key, and it must require some kind of algorithm, some kind of capability like a doorknob, where I'm going to have an end result. We all know how to work the doorknob. We all know the doorknob's there. We all know how doorknobs work. But we know it doesn't matter. I don't care about your algorithm. I care about the key going in the door and how it works. So jumping ahead, didn't mean to, but I'm going to keep going. All right, so let's all thank Augusta Kirchhoff. Why are we here? Well, the real reason is this guy said, this is it. He didn't care about the security of the algorithm. Didn't care if everybody knew the algorithm that's involved in ciphertext. Why? Well, he said, it's not the algorithm you protect. It's not the doorknob you protect. It's the key you protect. Now, I'm going to give you some examples. There were actually a group of people who all got together. It was actually not that long ago. They got together and they said, we're going to make this new algorithm that's unbreakable. Well, it was broken in like a day. Why? Because it's not the algorithm we protect. Kirchhoff said you protect the key. Now, I'm going to throw another word in there, right? That key, when I say the word key, or I say the word crypto variable, it's the same in regular cipher people language. I don't know anybody else who says it's a crypto variable except the tests, but a crypto variable is a key. Now, last but not least, I'm throwing in some more vocabulary. Here it goes. Cryptoanalysis. It's the science of deciphering data and revealing messages in the plain text. Cool. So I just said, here we go, I'm going back one slide, maybe two. Crypto is the science of concealing the message. Cryptoanalysis is unconcealing the message. You have two parts to that same coin. Pretty cool. Now, thank you, Augusta Kirchhoff. We're moving on. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some of the classical ciphers we started with that ended up in what we now determine as cryptography. They're ciphers. They aren't crypto, right? A crypto requires I have to have an algorithm, a key. I start with plain text, an algorithm, a key, and ciphertext, and then the decryption of that. I'm talking about a cipher. I'm talking about hiding things in plain sight. I'm sending messages in code. Well, great example of that. Yes. We can see the guy from the Christmas Story. And what did he want? He wanted the Orphan Annie decoder ring. Well, I don't think the Orphan Annie decoder ring actually existed because it's not on eBay. But at some point, he was able to determine that he needed to drink his Ovaltine. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But it depended on where you move the coin or where things went to be able to decipher the code. So initially, people on the other end would put out this information, which is your cryptography, and then you would unencrypt it, right? Well, you're not technically doing that because it's only a cipher. Now, other kinds of cipher definitely used during Greek and Roman years, right? We call them transposition ciphers, and the transposition ciphers were pretty cool. They would take a stick of a certain size and they would wrap the message around the stick, and depending upon the thickness of the stick, potentially the length of the stick, potentially the length of the ribbon that they tied around the stick, whatever it was. But again, that's that secret part that nobody knew about. You were able to portray or send messages using the information. Again, the substitution was replacement of each letter. Transposition moved them around. Now, great example of a transposition cipher, probably on my thing, but this is actually called the Skydale, which is one of the more common uses of this. But there's something called the ROT3, which is rotate 3 letters. So once you knew to rotate 3, you were able to encrypt and decrypt the messages. All right, we got substitution, we got transposition. Now, a lot of people are very familiar with this next screen, right? We're talking about the actual history of what we consider to be a very, very tied to World War II timeline. A couple of famous people, right? So some of the probably the guy who never gets mentioned, his name was Arthur Scherbus. And he invented the actual Enigma machine. He didn't create the actual Enigma machine to be used for wartime means, but it was manipulated into a wartime means machine. And it was a simple substitution cipher. And what they called it was they added in some rotors. So that means that it didn't just have one stick that's swirled, it had 3. Okay, so you can actually see the 3 rotors right here, where each one of them had to be turned the correct set of numbers or switches, and it was able to function. So again, Arthur Scherbus created the Enigma machine. He was actually a very, very brilliant mathematician. Now, in turn, we know that Alan Turing, who has had several films on the concept, created something, here we go, called the Bombay machine. That Bombay machine was created by the British Tabulating and Machine Company, kind of like Texas Instruments of the United States. Okay, well, with Alan Turing's assistance and the creation of the Bombay machine, and yes, a Polish mathematician named Marian Rajkowski, okay, they created this machine that was able to break the substitution cipher with multiple rotors on the Enigma machine. Why am I talking about this? Still talking about ciphers. I'm just talking about plain old substitution ciphers and how they undid them, but had to do them with these magic math machines. All right, some of the modern ciphers. I'm going to give you some examples of modern ciphers. Now, here we go. This is when we start walking into normal, everyday discussions about ciphers. So we have two kinds, private key or symmetric, single key, second key, one key, wicked fast. It's the same key used for encryption and Greek. We covered it. Public key, asymmetric, two different keys, one key to open, one key to close, one key to whatever, right? Wicked, slow, not friendly, right? So we'll talk about that. We talk about how this works. So ultimately, symmetric keys are they can be two things. They can be a block cipher or they can be a stream cipher. Great example of a block cipher. It's a big chunk. The whole thing comes across. It comes as one big chunk. So you put in one big chunk, you get your algorithm, you get your key, and it comes out as a big chunk, also known as a block, right? And those blocks are certain lengths. And we'll talk about how important those lengths are to the work factor of making, to breaking these things, right? Depends on your capability, but I mean, long division, not my favorite. It had its own set of rules, but you know what? Once you figured it out, the work factor was significantly less. In encryption, the bigger the block, the harder the work factor. The harder it is to undo, the harder it is to figure out. Stream ciphers are a little bit different. So we have block and we have stream. Stream ciphers don't do them all in one chunk. It all comes across completely encrypted. Stream ciphers do bit by bit, byte by byte. What does that really mean? Every time something comes across, it gets encrypted, 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 encrypted. Great example, Netflix, streaming services, Hulu, I don't care which one you pick. All of them are generated off the concept of a stream cipher. What do you mean Netflix is a stream cipher? Easy peasy. It actually uses one called cha-cha or salsa. So what does that really mean? Well, what it really means is as you are receiving it, you've put in a username and password into Netflix, and you are decrypting it as it is arriving in whatever machine you're using to run it. Your phone, your television, your Fire Stick, whatever it is, it's being decrypted, but it's completely in encryption as it comes across. If you don't put in the right username as password, and you don't pay your membership, you're not getting anything done. You're not going to get any of it unencrypted. All right, super cool things. Here comes what we consider to be modern keys. We were doing all this on paper, which is terrifying. Computer-based modern crypto started in the 70s. This is where we have really started to change the game. Now, it was created, yes, by the Royal Secret Intelligence Service. I think that's MI5. Not sure. They've got a lot of M's. And they didn't reveal that they had created it until the 1990s when they started sharing it with the world. Well, what does that mean? Public key encryption requires some things to make it functional. So here it goes. When I say public key encryption, I'm also thinking two keys, because remember we talked about asymmetric being also called public key encryption. So here it is. I'm a human being, and I would like to gain access to a system that has public key encryption. Well, cool. Well, the first thing I have to do is register. So I'm going to go over to the registry desk, an RA, a registry authority, and I'm going to register, and they're going to say, here's my identification, here's my password, here's proof that who I am, here's my need to know, here's my list privilege, whatever it is. I'm going to do that at the registry desk, right? Which is not a real desk, by the way. The registry says, fine, this person looks okay. They're going to gain access to this system. They send it off to the certificate authority. The certificate authority says, oh, well, you match all the criteria for needing access to this system and or this public key encryption. We're going to go ahead and give you a certificate. This certificate is your certificate of validity, your validity. So I'm going to send you a copy of that certificate, but I'm also going to send some over to the validity desk. And the validity desk says, hey, I have the certificates that prove this person should have access and or is a real person or should be authenticated in some way or needs to have access. So if I want to gain access to something, say I want to climb into, I'm just going to climb into a computer, and I climb into a computer and say, I'm going to climb in a computer. I put in my little card. I type my PIN. It sends me, you know what the first thing it's going to do is to say, hey, we see you have a certificate. Let's check and see if your certificate is any good. So what it does is it goes up to, guess who? The verification authority. The verification authority says, yes, this person is still a valid human being with a certificate that has this date, and you can let them in, and we will authenticate them. We will allow them in. So they're the verification authority. This system was a totally new, blow it, wow, in your face kind of, and you know what? This is the standard in which we go at, but we've only had this for a limited period of time, since the 1990s. It was actually very early in the 1990s, but still ridiculously cool. Now we even went from certificate replication lists on local machines to machines that are in the cloud that are revalidating this functionalities and viabilities of human beings in the cloud. So we've come a long way since it was released by the British Secret Service Intelligence Agency. I started a little bit more. So in 1970, same time frame, when we're talking about the beginning of modern crypto, we had something. Well, basically, I'm going to start walking us through where all the different types of algorithms and ciphers exist. Okay, so some of this stuff is cool and some of it's a little bit dry, but it shows you how far we've come. So the very first it was called the Horst Feistel. It was actually created by IBM, by a mathematician who worked at IBM. He was very computer based. His name was Horst Feistel, and he created the DES, the Data Encryption Standard. We like to call it DES, right? DES was created by IBM, and yes, they immediately handed it over to the National Security Agency. The National Security Agency said, yes, we like this. This secures the things that we need secured. We're going to put this up to NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and we're going to declare this the best thing we have. This is going to become the standard, 1970. Okay, so a little bit about it, and I'm going to throw these on the bottom of each slide, but I want you to consider, we talked about block ciphers. It comes across in one chunk. Well, this chunk is 64 bits in this particular standard, right? It has 48-bit key. So you have a 64-bit block and a 48-bit key. The keys are always 48 bits. And then it does it 16 times. So it doesn't just do it one 64-bit block. It does it 16 rounds with that 48-bit key. And then it spits out a block exactly the same size as went in. Now, when you consider the math that's involved in this, it is like ridiculously cool that you put it in, you crunch it up, you spit it out, it's the same size, and that's still information that can be used, manipulated. And again, if I up the number of rounds, maybe the work factor gets harder. If I up the number of the block, maybe the work factor gets harder. And again, work factor is how hard is it to break? Well, DES stuck around for a couple of years, and then it got broke fast. But here we go, DES, the Data Encryption Standard, 1970s. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the flavors of DES. I like to call them the flavors of DES because it didn't change that much. What changed was how it got broken and how hard it was to do the work factor. So DES came out, and it had that 56-bit key, and it had 16 rounds, and it's got something called the parity, which a parity means that it allows for some kind of randomness, right? We put in these extra numbers to make things random. It spit it out, and very soon thereafter, it was killed by a brute force attack. Well, are we still using it? Yeah, we were still using it until we had something else to replace it with. But yes, it was basically, it didn't work anymore because we brute forced it. So then we got 2DES. 2DES, well, it was the same size, 64 bits. It did 2 rounds of an algorithm with a 112-bit key, which means it basically doubled the key size, right? 32 rounds, doubled the number of rounds, and 2 parity. Well, and they still spit out the 64-bit block ciphertext. That one got killed not by something we like, there's a name in the industry called man in the middle, which we now refer to as an on-path attack, but it was a meet in the middle attack. Unfortunately, I don't have time to explain what a meet in the, but if you've never known what a meet in the middle attack is, look up 2DES and the meet in the middle attack. This is still happening if we don't do certain forms of encryption protect correctly. Okay. But again, it toast. Bye-bye. Didn't work. Right. So then now I have triple DES or 3DES or whatever you want to call it today. Right. Triple DES, again, same size block, 64, big old chunk, 64-bit block. I put it in. I get 3 rounds of algorithm. Oh, guess why? Anybody seeing the trend? 2 rounds, 1 round, 3 rounds. Everybody get it? Triple DES has 3 rounds, 168-bit key. So that means they tacked on another 56-bit key. So it's getting longer. But now you can use 3 different keys so that there's more viability than just chucking in a couple of parity. We're able to say, you know what I need? I need one that's this size key, or this size key. And I'm able to make some kind of variations in my key choices. This was in use for many, many years because it was so hard to break. Now, that doesn't mean it didn't get broken. It's in a lot of our legacy systems. If I were to go out today, I could find triple DES all over the place, still in use as it's being potentially migrated to a newer standard. But it worked for years, and it continues to work for years because of that 3-key option, and the work factor is hard. I know, I got a little deep, but we're going to keep going. All right, so now we're still in the 70s. So you're going to start seeing me put a lot of pictures of mathematicians on the screen. Yes, mathematicians, maybe a little bit of computer mixed in, mostly mathematicians, right? And these people were the people who came up with the whole concept of the algorithm, right? They came up with the pattern that should be used. They came up with some of the processes, but really they basically designed a doorknob that worked with a specific key, but their doorknobs were all unique. So this is doorknob number 1, the Rivest, Shamir, Alderman, named after 3 different guys named Rivest, Shamir, and Alderman. There's their pictures. I think they're a lot older now because this was the 1970s, but it was a cool pic, right? Thank you, Chegg, for providing it for me. Asymmetric, it was asymmetric. It had 2 keys. It was a block cipher. Now that we know that's a big old chunk, right? But that block cipher was made from, get this, the magic math between the public key and the private key was made from prime numbers. So this thing made mathematical sense, not to me, but to them, right? So first thing you did is you took your text. I've got my text. Hello, world, right? I encrypt it using the public key. I then have to decrypt it with a different key. But remember, they're paired private, or they're paired public-private prime number associated keys that worked for years. RSA was the go-to algorithm for many, many, many years. And you'll see Ron Rivest again. You will, because this guy grabbed hold of the industry and figured it out. So again, RSA, 2 block prime numbers. All right, here goes. This one's kind of cool. Most people have never heard of this one, but this is ridiculously cool. From 1983 to 1988, we had one used by the National Security Agency called Skipjack. It had 1 key. It was a symmetric key cipher, but it was symmetric, and it was block. Cool. 1 key undoes it, 1 key does it. It was used for protecting government voice and data networks. Now, again, government voice and data networks. Cool. Well, what did that do for me? Well, it really was kind of cool because it was the first cipher of its type that allowed for key escrow. Now, thank goodness I have little buttons on all my doors that let me in. But if I lose a key somewhere in my house, around my house, there is a rock with a key in it. I need a key escrow in case I, 1, lose my key, or 2, I'm going to need someplace to put it, right? So that key escrow was added right into Skipjack for the NSA, which means that if somebody dropped something, we could find it again. It was, there was this whole cool story that you might want to look up. It's pretty cool to Google it, but it was called LEAF. It was the Law Enforcement Access Field. So they used this key escrow right up till they figured out it didn't work. And that's why we don't use it anymore in 1988, because it was part of the Clipper chip experiment, basically. They were putting these key escrows into a chip and installing it in things, and it Wasn't quite what it was supposed to be. But again, we got to keep trying. So I'm going to go through it real fast. Here it goes. 64-bit block. We all understand the block, right? It's a bunch of Legos. There's 64 bits, right? An 80-bit key. Oh, that's a little small. We've seen some bigger than that already. A Feistel network with 32 rounds. Feistel network. And a Feistel is a different type of math equation. So that we've seen RSA that use prime numbers. Feistel is its own series of mathematical computations. And then, yes, it kicks out and spits out a 64-bit block ciphertext. Cool. El Gamal came out, 1985, slower than a sloth. The thing moved so slow, you couldn't even open an email. Oh my gosh, it took forever. I mean, you'd open it up and 5 minutes later it opened, right? So seriously, slow like sloth. El Gamal used 2 keys. It was asymmetric, cool. It was based on something we call the Diffie-Hellman exchange, and I'm going to be expanding that in a minute. And it added in signatures. We talked about PAIN, privacy, authenticity, privacy, availability. Well, my brain is not working. PAIN. Well, El Gamal was great at 3 of those. But making sure it worked and that it actually did something was very, notice it didn't have a time frame either. Like it came out and we decided it wasn't any good, right? But it's based on the Diffie-Hellman key exchange, and we will discuss that. Here it comes. So another one that came out, right? So we just talked slow. El Gamal came out. We didn't like it, right? We came out with something different. Mobile phones started coming out in the 80s, right? And yes, I hauled down the big phone that was gigantic. I mean, the size of your head, right? So, but we started to decide we wanted to be able to encrypt some of those conversations. We wanted to encrypt some of the data that we're moving. We couldn't get it on the little teeny tiny device. So we needed something that worked fast and that didn't have so much math and didn't take so much power. So we created something called the elliptic curve cryptography, the ECC. It was the RSA alternative. The RSA, Rob Rivas, we talked about them earlier, the 3 guys who created the RSA algorithm. That was a heavy lift based on prime numbers. Now we got ECC. Well, if you'll notice this little graph, I don't have to go from the end of the string to the other end of the string. I can just cut right through the middle and figure it out. It was based on something called discrete logarithms. Yes, we've entered another frame of math. So now we've got 3 or 4 different kinds of math for 3 or 4 different kinds of algorithms. And again, they're all doorknobs. They all require keys. All of them are a little bit different. All right, so this one was created by a guy named Victor Miller from IBM. And yes, a computer science named Neil Koblitz from University of Washington. Got to put a call out to that one because I got a kid who goes to school there. Why am I mentioning this? Because it was wicked fast. It moved us into the mobile encryption world. It allowed us to encrypt on laptops and phones and you name it. This is one of the reasons why we were able to move into almost a mobile society after 1985. All right, Ron Rivest is back. Here he is. Ron Rivest got so smart, he created his own RSA security group. Well, Ron Rivest in 1987 came out with something called RC4, which is the Rivest Cipher 4. It was a symmetric cipher, 1 key. It moved data bit by bit, byte by byte, like Netflix or maybe Hulu, right? It was really, really easy. You had the plain text, right? You had your key, you had your algorithm, you had a key stream that you added to that algorithm, and then it spit out your encrypted text. So this was a very straightforward, very fast stream cipher that allowed us to move forward. And the slower they got, the less we were capable of moving forward. This was a faster stream cipher. And stream ciphers are very common, but not like a block cipher. Block ciphers, absolutely way more popular. All right. Here we go. In 1991, yes, 1991, I actually remember when this came out. The guy that created this had a great idea. His name was Phil Zimmerman. Now, Phil Zimmerman came out with this in hopes that he could create the replacement for DES, because DES was the NIST standard, right? So he created, and if you know, we'll talk a little bit about Phil Zimmerman again, because we at least mentioned him at least one point. This guy created something called Pretty Good Privacy. Well, the way that we use and encrypt in pretty good privacy is, that's right, the International Data Encryption Algorithm known as IDEA, and it's still in use today. Well, it was a 64-bit block. We used a 28-bit, 128-bit key. That's a big key. That's twice the size of a block. 8 rounds, and then we added in a whole bunch of crap called modulo math and XOR. Yes, we've added in new kind of doorknob, right? We've added in a whole bunch of different math for this particular style of algorithm. And then it kicks out a 64-bit block. Everybody's kind of watching this trend. Goes in, crunches it up, spits it out, right? All right, here he is, pretty good privacy, created by Phil Zimmerman. Now, Phil Zimmerman I think is awesome. He's like my guru. You know, this guy spent more time in court trying to protect his creations than I think he built creations. Now, why was he awesome? Well, he was awesome for one big reason. He said that encryption should belong to everyone, that this should be a privilege that everyone should have, that everyone should be able to protect their data. And he created something called pretty good privacy. It was based on something we called the web of trust. I trust you, he trusts him, he trusts him. Because I trust you, I can also trust him. So that pretty good privacy, again, used a level of encryption that was added on called IDEA. But ultimately, you can see the whole thing comes down to, I put the information in, and this is email based. So we're not just talking about data or blocks. We're talking about an email goes in, we hashed it, we encrypt it, we have a signed digest. Wow, look at that non-repudiation. I've got that right there. And then I send it across. Then it is encrypted and decrypted. So we'll actually see, what does this all mean? This guy is pretty smart, right? But what he also said is everyone should have access to this. It's symmetric, single key, but it also had a public key version of it, which is ridiculously cool. Nowadays, you can have a paid version of this called GNU PGP, which is a play on words, I believe, which, you know, this one's still free. You can get on PGP right now and get on, for, you know, use this as a free service. Again, he fought for years to get that right. All right, there he is, Phil Zimmerman. So here's I'm going to show you again. This is the information going in. This is the information going out. I could have a whole class on just how cool PGP is. But what it did was it provided and upheld way more of the brain on pain. It provided that privacy. It provided the capability for you to have integrity. It provided that non-repudiation. It provided that authenticity. And it was free. Cool. Depends on what version you buy these days. All right. 1999 to the year 2000, lasted 1 year. NIST said, we are going to have a gigantic contest. So they said, DES is getting old, 1970s, right? DES came from the 70s. We need to find, but these are the regs. These are what we want. We want to be able to have a block cipher. We want it to be a certain size. We want 3 different key sizes, and we want it to spit back out the same size. Cool. So we had lots of 12 different countries, 15 candidates, and they wanted to create something called the Advanced Encryption Standard, also known as AES. So everybody puts it in. IBM was put in something called MARS. Ron Rivest, yes, there he is again, of Rivest Laboratories, put in RC6. Mentioned its trademark because this guy trademarks everything, which is cool. Rindle was 3 guys' names mixed together. And actually not necessarily 3 guys' names, but a pair of males and females who put their names together and smushed it. And yes, they won, but there's some questions about that. And then Serpent was created by the UK, Israel, Norway. Cool. We liked Serpent, but Serpent we'll talk a little bit about. It kind of wiggled around when it did its ciphering. And then there's one called Twofish. And there's so many human beings I can't name them all, but Twofish. These were named as the top 5. These made it all the way to the tip top, and this was the deciding. But we picked Rindle. Rindle was chosen by NIST because it had 3 different ways to work, right? So it was asymmetric, which means it's slow. It had 2 keys, a public and a private key. But here goes. It kicked in a 128-bit block, and then it's got a 128-bit key with 10 rounds, and then it spits out a 128-bit block. Cool. So I've got a 128-bit key. Then I can, oh, wait, that's not strong enough. I need a stronger work factor. I can get a 192-bit key. Oh, no, not good enough. I want to make it harder to break. I can go a 256-bit key, which is twice the size of a 128-bit block, and I can do 14 rounds. Whoa. The work factor on that is quantum resistant today. Now, that doesn't mean tomorrow we don't have some kind of quantum technologies or AIs that are not spending tons of time trying to break this. But currently, that 128-bit today, August 6th, it is quantum resistant. What does that really mean? It's safe. It's safe to use. AES 256 is what we want as the best way to protect our data. You're gonna pay for it, but at the same time, it's a 128-bit block. It's got a big old key with a huge work factor, and it spits out a 128-bit block. All right. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the fishes. We got the blowfish, the two fish, the three fish. Thank you, Dr. Seuss, for reminding me how important it is to know math, right? So blowfish was created by a guy named Bruce Snyder, and this thing was fast. Well, let's talk about why it was fast. So it used 64-bit block, right? We've been talking about 64-bit blocks pretty much the whole time, but we've scaled up and down, right? We have a variable length key. So I could choose a key from 32 to 440, but I didn't have like this random. I could pick 33. I could pick 333. Whatever it was, I could pick any one of those keys. Whoa, the math must hurt my brain to think of that, right? It had 16 Feistel-like iterations. We talked about that Feistel math before. So we have a key that could be massive or small. We had Feistel-like operations, and then it split. And then it did it again. Why was it called blowfish? Because it blew up, went to different places. That's how I remember it. I don't think that's really what the plan was, but that's how Kat remembers it. All right, then I got two fish and three fish. Yes, those are Dr. Seuss fish. And basically, what was the deal? Two fish, remember, won the top 5. Two fish was 128 bits. It had 3 key sizes, just like the requirements of the thing. It was fast. It was capable of running on 8-bit CPUs, right? It was capable of being run by what we had and was capable and fast. And the work factor was good, right? And then we had 3 fish, which was crazy train, right? We've got 56, 512. Look at the size of those blocks. Whoa, when we've moved far away from the standard size block, right? Huge. We got 3 different block sizes. We got 3 huge key sizes. We got 72 rounds. You think this thing was fast? No, it would take you like a week to read an email, right? And it added in even another thing. It added some integrity in. We like integrity, right? It added in something called the Skeen hash function. That hash function provided some of that integrity for that brain on pain idea, right? So there, we're done with the fish. Let's move on. Again, I told you I was going to fire hose you for 45 minutes, but it's fun stuff. This stuff is so cool. Hey, there's Ron Rivest. He got a little bit older in my pictures. And again, Ron created RSA security, and he is his brain must be gigantic with all the math that's in it. But here goes Ron Rivest. Ron Rivest didn't just create, RC4, which was a stream cipher. He created 3 more block ciphers for us to play with, right? So he created RC2, RC5, RC6. I have no idea what happened to RC3. I know about 4. So again, I'll look it up one day and figure out where the heck it went. But right now, these are the ones that stand. So 64-bit block, variable length key. Ooh, somebody's been looking at the other ones. We can tell that this kind of happened. Here's your key range, right? 16 Feistel likes, and then it's split in half. Huh, that sounds terribly familiar. RC5 was block. Again, a big block. It went fast, and then it was capable of running. So I think I might have screwed up this slide, but we'll move on. So again, Ron Rivest, RC2, RC5, 6. Yep, I did. I messed the slide up, but we're going to move on. And if you ever want to know, I'll look it up. We still like Ron Rivest. All right. Serpent was one of the other ones that won, right? Serpent was kind of wiggly. And if you look at the mathematical computations it took you through in the series of events, it looked like a serpent as it wiggled around doing the math. So that's one of the reasons I was named Serpent, right? It was a symmetric, which is wicked fast, 1 block key cipher, right? And again, check this thing out. 128 block, cool. 3 sets of keys, right? That's why it made it to the top 5. It had 32 rounds, which isn't that many, but check it out. Substitutions and permutations throughout. So it wiggled around and substituted and permutated and then substituted again and went back around. So this was ridiculously, it wasn't fast, but it was thorough. And it did make it to the top 5. All right, here goes. TEA, Tiny Encryption Algorithm. That's its actual name. TEA, tiny encryption algorithm. Look at this tiny little thing. Well, it looks terribly, terribly complicated. 64 bits, 128s, 32 feistels. We did it again. And then lots of substitutions and permutations. Cool. All right. These two guys, terribly cool, right? Carlisle Adams and Stafford Terrace. So these guys in 1996 created something called CAST. CAST is their name put together, CAST, Carlisle Adams and Stanford Travis. I never knew this until I did this slideshow, but I was terribly impressed with, I had no idea where this came from. I had figured it had to do with fishing or something. Again, this one's cool, but why do I want to talk about this? Because it's paired up with PGP. We're using CAST and CAST5 in our PGP and our PGF stuff. Why is this cool? Because these guys are sharing with the world, one, and two, this is a step up in some ways from IDEA. All right. GOST came from, yes, I'm not even going to say it, right? This was the governmental standard for Russia. This was very, very, very secret until 2023. We just getting glimpses of this now. And if you have the opportunity to walk through this cipher, wow, it was cool. It was very, very simple. But again, it basically had this extra substitution box that held extra stuff, and then it would chuck the stuff in the substitution box in and make it different. It was way cool. But it was known as GOST or Magma. That was its other name. Again, Russian standard. Camilla was created by Mitsubishi Electric and a telephone company, right? And it's a very, very specific. It's named Camilla because it's so beautiful, but also it's a Japanese product that was created to make sure that really it was to secure telephones with the help of Mitsubishi Electric. All right, so we've walked through a whole bunch of this stuff. I'm going to do it very, very quickly, right? But here's my stream cipher. Here's my block cipher, stream cipher, bit by bit, byte by byte. I got its data in motion. I got RC4, Ron Rivest. I got A5. We haven't talked about that, but basically we can't talk about them all because I only got an hour. I got HC128. I got Salsa and Cha-Cha, but I mentioned those as stream ciphers that are being used very, very commonly in things like streaming apps like Netflix. Then I have this block cipher. I got DES. I got my flavors of DES, right? DES, 2DES, 3DES. Then I got Rindle. Then I got IDEA used in PGP. I got Skipjack that said, hey, you can have a key at Scroll. I got 2Fish, Blowfish, 3Fish. I got TEA, Serpent, RC2, 4, 5. And yes, we've added on an RC6 because RC6 was one of those winners of the top 5, right? Because he had 3 different key sets. Camila, which is in layer 4. Folks, this is a layer 4 encryption mechanism. GOST and CAST, and CAST or CAST5 is the same word. So kind of cool. Using using mind maps to study some of this stuff is a great way to kind of show where everything goes in its place. All right, here's my asymmetric mind math. Here comes some scary stuff, right? We talk about asymmetric being 2 keys. We talk about it being slow. Well, here comes. It upholds all pain. PAIN, all 4. Asymmetric does it. Symmetric doesn't do them all, but it helps. So we've got PGP over here in our web of trust. We've got that Diffie-Hellman key exchange, which I promised to talk about. I'm going to talk fast. And then I'm going to add in some other things. So I've got my RSA, my ElGamal, low and slow, electric curve cryptography, mobile devices fast. And then I've got digital signatures, right? We've even got some other things that are tied to those digital signatures. We've got more than one type of digital signature. And then we have the digital signature algorithm. The DSA, the digital signature algorithm, was only created for the United States government, and its entire purpose was to ensure it had integrity, that the data had integrity that we were sending across. Not confidentiality. Maybe it's got integrity and non-repudiation, but it didn't have confidentiality. It just, we know who it came from and we can prove it. And yes, Schnorr and ElGamal. And then we talked about ElGamal being dirt slow, so probably not going to use it so much. All right, there's my Diffie-Hellman key exchange. Let me tell you a little bit about the negotiator, okay? The negotiator, and if you don't know who this guy is, it's Captain Kirk, really. William Shatner, he did these crazy commercials for years and years about negotiating your hotel room. I don't care about negotiating hotel rooms. You know what I care about? This guy took a public key from this guy. He takes a public key from this guy. He takes the 2 of them together. He smushes them together. He uses some XOR and some magic math. Yes, there's more technical than that. He negotiates and he gives it back. Now we have different keys, but they're mathematically connected. And the only guy who knows what's happening there is the negotiator. And that's known as the Diffie-Hellman key exchange. I like to picture it as a, I don't know, a lawyer running around with a Hellman sandwich and some keys. I have no idea. The weird things I remember. But here it goes. I'm going to fangirl in a second. There he is. That is Mr. Deafy. He is in his 80s and is still attending conferences and talking about how we can strengthen the Deafy-Hellman key exchange using quantum physics and quantum math. I mean, this guy's smart. I fangirled for 5 seconds and wow, cool. All right. Whoop. Hope I'm still going to conventions at 80. We talked a little bit very, very briefly about the digital signature algorithm created by the United States government to do two things. It was a signature. That's it. Signatures tell you who you are and validate who you are, right? You have to have, and basically that's it. That was its job. It protected integrity, protected non-repudiation. It did not protect confidentiality. All right. We're going to move a little. We're getting there. Other ways we protect data is by using cryptographic functions called hashes. A hash is not a cipher. A hash is not crypto. It's a cryptographic function. Its entire job is to uphold integrity. Did somebody mess with it? No. Can you prove it? Cool. All right. Lots of different kinds of hashes. We got tons of hashes. SHA-1, SHA-2, SHA-3. We've got the whole SHA family. We've got the whole RIPE-MD family. We've got the whole MD family. All of them, just like in encryption, we have different sizes. We don't have keys. There are no keys, period. Keys are not for this. It's sizes and the math that's involved. Now, really, what does that really mean? Well, if it has a low collision level, I like it because then I save my integrity. It has a high collision level. Bad because then I can't prove my integrity. All right. So there's some cool hashing engine examples. If you've never hashed and you have no idea what I'm talking about, climb on this website or climb on any hashing website. Be careful what you climb on, please. And check it out and look at all the different hashes. When I look at a virus coming in, I want to see its hashes. I want to know whether or not my hash has been added to my firewalls. I'm looking at this, and this is my identifying signature that says I can prove it wasn't messed with, but I can also prove that that's what it looks like. All right. We're going to move at, we'll talk about it for a second. HMAC is another form of an integrity check, a message integrity check. It's a piece of cipher text-ish keying, hashing. It upholds multiple layers of pain, but what it really does is says, I have to check and see who it really came from. I'm going to hash it. I'm going to prove that's who it came from, and then I'm going to do it again. So it helps me send messages in transit. It helps me send data in transit. Woo! Wow. So we talked a little bit. We did symmetric, we did asymmetric, slow, and now we're talking about message integrity checks, not crypto, hashing, integrity, validation, right? So I have lots of different kinds of message. I have MD, the MD family, the SHA family, the RIPE-MD family. There was one called bcrypt, which is terribly cool, but that's all there was. It didn't last long. I got cyclic redundancy code. I got all tied to PGP and OpenPGP. I got checksums. Checksums are math equations. If the number was 32 and you went back and you checked, this one says 32, we use checksums and TCP/IP every time we send a packet. And then, of course, the key crypto hashing function, which is HMAC, which is what I just talked about, tying into your messages. Wow. Blockchain. We moved real fast. Here goes. Blockchain is applied crypto. It is not crypto. It is based on applied crypto concepts. What does it really mean? I buy a Bitcoin, whatever it is. I buy a digital coin. It is on a public ledger. That public ledger says everybody who bought the crypto has proof of this ledger. So if I buy it, then you add it to your ledger, 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 you add it to your ledger. Now everybody has proof in all their ledgers that I own that piece of crypto coin. It is a massive scale, but it is definitely a crowd crypto. And we have about a minute left. And I'd like to dedicate this to Hedy Lamarr. Now, I actually I teach cybersecurity courses, and I was absolutely thrilled that one of my students gave me an entire heads up on Hedy Lamarr. There is an amazing Netflix program about her right now. She was a movie actress and an inventor. So she actually created, here it comes, she created the frequency hopping spectrum technology. It was intended to create the jamming of torpedoes. So she worked in a lab during the day, and in the evenings and the weekends and things like that, she was an actress, but she was very, very talented in all of her arenas, but she was never given a real chance to shine as an inventor, because you're looking at, this is the world she lived in. Here goes. Although not directly related to crypto, right? This is the amazing person who created the foundations and understanding of what we refer to as Wi-Fi and Bluetooth technologies. Wow. So again, this women in cybersecurity is leading the nation, but women have been leading our nation in crypto-based technologies and in IT-based technologies for decades. So I think I've hit my time, which means I'm about to be in trouble. But I'm going to go ahead and I think somebody else has to jump on here with me for a second. There she comes. And I don't have a whole lot of time for questions, but I'm more than happy to address some of them. Rosalie, did you have fun?
Yes, this was actually very informative and enlightening. I did not know that about Hedy Lamarr, and now I will be checking out that Netflix documentary. I'm a big fan.
I had a student who told me all about it, and I said, I have to throw that in his presentation.
Yes, we love it. And thank you so much, Kat. This was an incredible webinar. I've been seeing the feedback coming in, and all the viewers are agreeing on that. So we are over time, so we do appreciate everybody staying. But I'm going to we'll do 2 questions just so we can round out. And if you guys have any further ones, please feel free to connect. Kat, do you mind if people connect with you on LinkedIn?
Not a problem. You'll find me under Kat Nielander, and I'm affiliated with a training organization called Allied Cyber. But you will find me, and there are more alphabet letters behind my name, so don't be scared, okay? Alphabet soup is good.
Alphabet soup is great. So one of the questions was, what type of cryptography should we start focusing on due to the quantum computer faster processing power?
I knew this was coming. So here comes the answer. We protect the algorithm, and we don't protect the algorithm. We protect the keys. So just like Diffie-Hellman came to that conference and he told us all about how we're going to be able to strengthen what we have now using crypto technologies, that is going to help us in the fight against being broken by AI and machine learning based technologies. So the crypto we have has the capacity to be strengthened, coming with brand new ways and new kinds of math. And that just hurts my brain, right? So ultimately what it comes down to is we need to protect what we have using the technologies that we're afraid of. And honestly, quantum math is awesome. All right.
And then there was another quantum question, which was...
Of course it's a quantum question.
And it said, I think you said something about AES being quantum safe. Did they hear that correctly? And what does that exactly mean?
So what that means is, honestly, I had to Google that one. So you're right. There was a lot of research that went into this. And I read that and said, there's no way, right? So technically, I'm going to tell you to Google it. But 2, I'm going to tell you that what that means is right now, there isn't an easy work factor for this. If we run quantum-based analysis right now, today, on that level of encryption, it's going to take us either too long to work it, really that's it, too long to work it. So if you've ever, just find a crypto machine, go out on Google, be careful, go out on Google, find a test bank that allows you to run tests against how long the work factor is against this crypto. You can pick DES and you can go, I'm going to put in this key, it's 128-bit, I'm going to put the information in, and then you run it against it and you see how long it takes. My computer grinded for 6 days before it broke triple DES. Yes, I needed to reboot after that, and I probably, killed a couple of brain cells in the process, but it was fun. So if you have questions about this stuff, the really big thing is choose the area you want to learn, figure out the history, go hunting for what's out there. But really, the big thing is we use this for one reason: pain. We need all 4 elements to be included. So what we do, here we go. This is the end of the conversation. We use asymmetric because it's the best option, because it's safe. It's got 2 keys, but it's slower than dirt, right? So I make everything in block, in symmetric, which is wicked fast. and then I do my little key exchange with my asymmetric, with my public-private key exchange using PKI or the Diffie-Hellman equivalent exchange. And Diffie-Hellman has been broken, by the way, and can be broken because of, on-path / man-in-the-middle attacks. But still, I want to send a message. I'm going to use symmetric encryption to zip it up and do it fast. And then I'm going to do the little key exchange with my two keys, and then I'm going to send it across. And then I'm going to do my little key exchange with the two keys, and then I'm going to unencrypt it using a symmetric encryption. So it's the best of both worlds. It's hybrid. But I hope you all enjoyed it. I had to talk kind of fast, but you know what? I shoved like 3 hours worth of stuff in 1 hour, so we did good. If you have any questions or comments, or you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, feel free to do so. And I had fun. So I hope you all have a great day. And little shout out to Hetty for creating some Wi-Fi so that I can do this presentation today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kat. We really appreciate you being here. I hope everyone has a great day and look forward to our next webinar.
Cool.